beautiful Tuesday morning here in the Twin Cities. It's Nordo. It's 9 to noon. I'm in for PA. He's returning on Thursday, a Vox in the Box extraordinaire. Season opener, Minnesota Wild hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. I believe we're doing a 9 to noon show from Tria, watching the morning skate, kicking off the Wild season. Excited for that. But looking backwards, and I'm also excited, joining me right out of the gates here. We'll get to the TimberTech set list and all of that at some point this segment. Maxx Fuller producing. Paul Charchian, Friday Football Feast co-host, and, of course, Fantasy Football Weekly, fan family all-timer. How you doing, Charch?
Hi, Nordo. I'm doing great because my favorite team is 5-0 rolling into the bye, and we get to just bask in this for 2 weeks, which is great. Not the prettiest win of all time. I think that's going to be one of those games where we'll turn the page quickly and move on to Detroit before long. But happy to be 5-0 and in a position to really control your own destiny. And the schedule gets what seems like on paper just so much easier once we get past this Lions game. Well,
yeah, into the season, doing all those projections, Charch. It's are they going to be 2-3 into the break? That'd be awesome. Or 1-4. You're kind of doing the doom and gloom. Got to get that Giants game. But this is for people that were thinking about a summertime. What was the total was 6.5? I believe the Vikings wins at DraftKings or FanDuel, et cetera. Where you were gonna eat a little bit was going to be, after this Kitties game. You're looking at the Rams, as injured as they are. You think about that AFC South and those games that line up with each other. You're going to get Arizona some of those spots at home. It truly, to get through this gauntlet 5-0, based on how we were viewing things a month and a half ago, I don't want to say it's a miracle, but what Kevin O'Connell has done along with Flores in this defense is nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, that's probably the most understated word I can think of. It's remarkable for where the Vikings are. And I think, not to take anything away from Sam Darnold, he's cooled off a little bit lately, but it's the defense so good. Can I just do a rambling stat dump on you and our listeners?
I'm excited for you to do it.
All defense stuff here. It is just to be here through 5 games. And to think about where this defense was just 2 years ago as probably the worst defense in the NFL, and to get to here, it's unbelievable. So here's what Brian Flores has managed to put together. We'll start here. Yards allowed per play. The Vikings are 5th in the league. Rushing yards allowed per play. It's all nerdy stats. Just hang tight for 60 seconds.
I'm in.
It's all good stuff. Rushing yards per play, 2nd in the NFL. Yards per rush allowed, 2nd. Rushing defense success rate, 4th best. Rushing touchdowns allowed, tied for 1st, only allowing 1 rushing touchdown. Missed tackles, Vikings are 2nd. They have just 14 missed tackles in 5 games. Interception rate, team is number 2 with an almost 5% interception rate. 3rd down conversion percentage, defense is 5th. The opposer passer rating, the Vikings are 2nd. Sacks registered, the Vikings have dropped down to 2nd now, by the way. Giants are your NFL sack leader at this time. Interceptions, Vikings are 1st with 11. And then lastly, for those that are big DVOA fans, the team is a gigantic DVOA margin at number 1. The margin between the Vikings at number 1 and the next closest team, you could fit like 8 other teams DVOA into just that margin between number 1 and number 2. DVOA takes account for things like you're ahead by 14 points and you're in a prevent shell, stuff like that. So it's just across the board domination for this defense. And to me, as great a story as Sam Darnold did, and he remains in the MVP conversation, this is story number 1 for me, remains Vikings defense just being so good.
And, pick your poison kind of through the first 5 games. And Andrew Van Ginkel has been absolutely amazing. And I've said this multiple times. When we first acquired Van Ginkel, I'm trying to learn about him. We're in the midst of free agency. When I was thinking about guys coming out of Miami, it was Christian Wilkins. And let's get that fat guy in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And you read into and what the fan base is saying, the Armando Salgueros of the world who are covering the Dolphins, and the fan base and people that cover the Dolphins are like, well, actually, this team might be worse off without Van Ginkel than they will be missing Christian Wilkins. This guy's, he's been absolutely amazing, Charch, with the 3 sacks, a couple of touchdowns with those picks. If he picks it off, it feels like he's going to get to the house But the way that they identified these guys in the offseason, I mean, Flores found Blake Cashman, I guess, apparently. I think it was Marcus Sherrills or somebody who just said, hey, look up Blake Cashman flow. You'll see what I'm talking about. He's his cat down. He is a former Gopher. He's down in Houston. And these guys, each of these guys, week to week to week, have splashed in their own ways. It's truly a beautiful thing what Brian Flores has been able to do with this thing.
Van Ginkel's doing what we had hoped and on theory he would do when we were talking over the summer about the kind of role that he could have as a hybrid rusher, drop into coverage guy and just be super rangy. Had no idea that we were getting quite this out of Van Ginkel. Right now, in my mind, it's a three-way race for defensive MVP, and it's still super early, obviously. But Aiden Hutchinson is the leader in the clubhouse. He's got like twice as many pressures per game as the next closest player. Patrick Surtain is in there. He's just obliterating opposing players, had the 100-yard touchdown. And then Andrew Van Ginkel, he's got to be in this conversation. And, just the impact plays and the fact that, he's so crafty with his ability to sneak into coverage that we have quarterbacks just throwing the ball right into his chest. It's amazing how well adapted he is for this scheme. And yeah, it's again, not to keep repeating myself, but I just think defense is really the biggest part of this story. And then, for Sam, he's cooled off, but he's still in the MVP conversation. You're 5-0 at the quarterback. You're going to be that guy. Yeah. He's now tied for third in touchdowns. He was alone in touchdowns going into last week. Fifth in passer rating. And the big difference, and you and I talked about it a little bit on Friday for Sam Darnold, it's the deep balls. They're connecting. He's sixth in deep ball completion percentage, and he's third in completions on passes over 15 yards. And that's, man, when you can get those big downfield plays, it's the explosive plays just tilt a game your way. And Darnold's been able to do that. Well,
let's explore this. I like how you put it in terms of Sam Darnold cooling down. $179, he has the pick. Part of the reason he's dropped in the touchdown statistical category is because he didn't throw any. It was CJ Ham providing the bulk of the offense, or at least the bulk of the offensive points.
Scoring.
But in terms of what you saw in London, there's this, and it's always a balancing act, but kind of the idea of, this Jets defense has the ability to play pretty well too. And the cornerbacks and what Saleh's group was putting there, the defensive front, they knew they had been awful against the run, so they have the right to change that, of course. But kind of, a couple of days later, just watching some things back, Sam did miss a few plays. He missed a few opportunities. There was a great throw that he had to Justin Jefferson, and on the TV copy, it looks amazing. Well, if he leads them a little farther down the boundary, it's actually a 60-yard touchdown instead of a 30-yard connection, those sorts of things. And you mentioned he throughout the season, for the most part, has been really good on some of those longer passes. What have you seen from Darnold maybe the last couple of games where it's like, I got to watch this a little bit more closely and some things to tune up in the bye?
Yeah, the completion percentage is down. Last week he completed, I'm looking, 45% of his passes.
Yeah, he was sub 50, I know that.
Yeah, holy cow. It just, the accuracy that had been really, really good, has tailed off through, especially this game. But I don't know. The Jets are awesome. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed are the best set of cornerbacks in the league. And boy, fascinating game plan to really just keep attacking those guys and roll up some interference penalties, which ended up being really meaningful over the course of this game. I thought that was a really interesting decision, ultimately by Kevin O'Connell. Didn't love a lot of the play calling in that Jets game, but man, the Jets are such a unique beast. There's, from a passing standpoint, they really are a team without a weakness. There's nowhere to go, including the slot, where you can just go get your easy reception. And then when you lose your starting running back, and Ty Chandler was never able to get anything going, and the whole offense just stagnated. And I don't want to read too much into it, because again, the Jets are it's so good, and that's such a tricky litmus test to try to evaluate your team against.
How about this? This just from Adam Schefter. It was a good win in London for the Vikings. Get out alive. We're sweating Aaron Rodgers on that final drive. Stephon Gilmore picks him off, ices the game. Stephon Gilmore not only won the game, he may have gotten somebody fired. Schefter's saying that the Jets have fired head coach Robert Saleh.
Wow. First one out. Holy cow. Yep. There was a lot, several things here as we're breaking this down in real time. There had been talk about him being disliked. Yeah. So that had been that baggage had been carried for a long time. Aaron Rodgers could be poisoning the well. Let's not take that away as a possibility. Remember, Nathaniel Hackett's his guy. And now it'll be interesting to see, does Nathaniel Hackett become the head coach of the Jets, the interim head coach? Because that's obviously the guy that Aaron Rodgers wanted to be his offensive coordinator. Yeah. Probably nobody else would have hired Hackett. So that'll be really interesting. And if things were bad between Saleh and Rodgers, remember they had that sideline
the
moment of thing, weirdness a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I'd love to know how much Rodgers was involved in this decision, if at all.
No, that's crazy. And you're right. Hackett, who had just an awful, hideous run in that stretch with the Broncos, and Rodgers in the process of bringing all his buddies with him to the big city. Now it might be Hackett. Now, if they don't pick Hackett, that's kind of an indictment that's saying, yeah, you're as bad as advertised. We're just going to keep you over here. You're only here because of Aaron Rodgers. Now, a lot of people we were talking about it yesterday. Undefeated team, all of that. Sam, you're talking about that cooling a bit. What do you think about that hit he took in that game at London, though? I've had, and I'm getting it in front of me right now with our text line, 64686, that those missed, this is Shane and Shakopee, those missed longer passes came after the rib hit. He makes those before he gets hit. And several others, Dan in Wyoming, several others. You think maybe, because Mullins rolls in, throws that little fade bit to Aaron Jones, and then Sam, the man on the fan, is back in. But maybe that injury, maybe there's some rib, a little sternum action, something hurting him into the bye.
Well, and he rolled in with that knee injury going back to, I don't know, week 2 or whatever. And that didn't quite look right as well. So, the bye week might really help Sam Darnold a lot. Clearly looked pretty battered from the hits he had taken. And I do think that was affecting him some. Ribs on a quarterback, that's a tough injury. Harder than other positions for sure, just because of the nature of the passing motion and the way that you have to continue to expose your ribs every time you throw. It's not trivial, rib problem. So yeah, that could end up being a sizable factor with this as well.
Isn't it kind of weird to think, Charchie, that into the bye, again, whether it's nitpicking, this is a good thing. The team's undefeated. But it's like, it's one of the biggest things is, hey, can you guys figure out how to play with massive leads, please? They are staking such massive advantages early in these games. And the last couple, of course, were a little sweatier than we wanted them to be. But if it's into the bye, it's like, okay, we need Aaron Jones, how vital he is to this offense. Things got weird when he was injured in London and all of that. Quarterback, hope he's healthy, et cetera. But man, when you guys get up 28-0, can you just shut the door a little earlier? That feel like with the way this team is running, Kevin O'Connell in one of his post games, he said it in his message to the team that this is our formula: starting fast, scoring early. That was part of the conversation in 2022. It's been that way through 5 here in 2024. All engines running on all cylinders right now. This thing's humming along.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. It'd be nice to just close the door on some of these and not make them nail biters at the end. I would take that, but hard to argue with a team that gets out fast and commands the lead, because now you get to play schematically the way you want to play. You get to dictate how you want to do business, and you're not in a position where you're down by 7 and I think we're going to pass the rest of the game. So there's and the Vikings they've run more this year at a higher rate this year than they have in other years with Kevin O'Connell. And I think that's reflected in the big leads that they've had. It would be nice to just slam the door. And I'm a little bit surprised that Brian Flores that he really takes a lot of the aggressive tendencies out of his defense when this team gets ahead. And nobody likes. Does anybody like the prevent defense? Everybody like, yeah, bring on the prevent defense. Let's just see if we can just hang on and cling to a win, and we'll give up a lot of long drives, and that'll be okay. I wish this team could just continue to play aggressively, roll the dice, do the things that had worked well for a quarter and a half, and then make a team find a way to beat you when you're still bringing heat on a regular basis. So, but to this point, we're 5-0. So who are we to complain, right?
Yeah, one or two more for you here. I'll let you get on to enjoy a busy morning. The offensive line through 5. Ed Ingram, what we're looking at with him. Dalton Reisner is on the horizon of returning, keeping with Blake Brandel at left guard. That's ended up being, I think, a massive positive. What do you think about the Minnesota moving company through 5?
Well, we got I tweeted this yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. The highest rated guard in the NFL right now by Pro Football Focus, for whatever you want, is Ezra Cleveland. I know we got a 6th-round pick. I don't know who we took in the 6th round. Maybe we got somebody really good with that pick. And I know Ezra Cleveland was coming due for money.
Yeah.
And he ended up signing an $8 million a year deal, which is a lot for a guard. But we've got the cap space. I mean, at the time that we made that trade and we let Ezra Cleveland go, maybe we still thought we were signing Kirk at that point. Maybe the plan, we didn't know that we were going to have the cap space flexibility that ultimately we ended up having. But it hurts when Ezra Cleveland is ranked number 1 in blocking, which is what I need my guards to do. And Ed Ingram is 3rd from the bottom. Ooh. He's 68 or 70 among guards. Yeah. He's the number. Hold on. I'm going to pull up my tweet on this. He has allowed 17 quarterback pressures so far. Ed Ingram.
Yeah, I watched a play. I watched a play or two back. I didn't watch every play, and it ends up being the plays where with Ed. This is my luck of when I watch things back. I always find the plays in which he's just dreadful. And I know there are good moments out there, but when they're stunting or bringing somebody around, he struggles with that. He struggles with that on a regular basis. And Sam got beat up a little bit in London. This last thing for you here, the NFC North is the only division in the NFL right now where every team is above 500. This is absolutely going to be a dogfight. We got Kitties around the corner. Caleb just threw for 300, albeit on a bad Panthers team. Packers handled business. And then they're still trying to figure things out with hope, as from their standpoint, a getting healthy Jordan Love. But we're the only division where everybody's at least above 500.
Don't rule out Chicago. This Chicago defense is really, really good. Really good. Top 5 defense. And Caleb Williams is starting to turn everything around, and the offensive line is starting to give him time. This Chicago Bears team is gonna be nasty. There's nobody to rule out in this division anymore. And if people ruled out the Vikings. Obviously, they're not. This is the Packers have managed to get to this point, 3 wins in 5 games, despite some really, really inconsistent play from Caleb Williams and the offense in totality. And now that this offense is kind of rocking the last 2 games, and especially last week, man, Chicago looks really good, and their schedule is absolutely easy for Chicago. They're going to go, so they just got Carolina. Yeah. Then they're going to go Jacksonville. Then they're going to enjoy a bye week off. Then it's Washington, Arizona, New England. They may win the next 4 games, then 5 games. Bye week. For the 5, and then they face Green Bay in week 11 before they really have a particularly stern challenge. The Bears are going to be right in the thick of this thing.
Wow. Hey, thanks as always, Charch. Enjoy the week off. A week from Friday, you're going to be back with PA, the Friday Football Feast in Monticello on October 18th.
Oh, it's Monticello.
It is Monticello.
Monticello indeed. Always draws. We get all the people from St. Cloud. Some people, we get the Dakotas. This is the farthest northeast that we'll get. So, yeah, love it when people make time out of their schedule, burning vacation days, lining up early. Monticello Friday Football Feast, not this Friday, but the Friday after that.
Indeed. You're the best. Have a great week, my friend.
Thanks, my man. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That's Paul Charchian, Friday Football Feast co-host, Fantasy Football Weekly. Love when Charch is able to join on wonky days like this, a Tuesday kicking things off, continuing that vibe of what you love through 5. Charch setting off a Timber Tech set list that gives you 9 to noon. PA out today. It's me, Nordo, and it's Max with me. And we're actually going to continue this NFL conversation next segment. But text messages always loved. 64686, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line, free iHeartRadio app, talkbacks in the mix. And Timber Tech, timbertech.com brings you a set list that includes the columnist. We'll We'll actually bring up the Bears with Lavelle Neal III. Thank you to Allery's. He'll be in studio at 10 o'clock. And then Ryan Burns, GopherIllustrated.com's Ryan Burns. He covers the Gophers. And big win at USC and a tricky one this weekend against UCLA. Is it too easy to just mow through the Bruins? What's that thing going to look like with Deshaun Foster's team? We're going to talk about Gophers football during the final hour. And each and every hour, we also offer you the chance to win some money. Max, that's your job.
The Fan and 2 men and a truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword WIN. That's WIN at KFAN.com for your shot at winning. That's keyword WIN. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Get ready, Minneapolis. AWOL Nation are set to hit the stage at the iconic First Avenue on April 28th. Don't miss your chance to see their electrifying performance live with hits like Sail, Not Your Fault, and Hollow Moon. Tickets are on sale now. Get the full details at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
I'm still trying to wrap my head. We're going to get to some NFL bits. Max has got some highlights and some scores. Weird week in the NFL.
Really weird week.
Weird season thus far.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold and the Commanders and what they're doing. But I'm still trying to wrap my head. And it's not, this isn't Jets fan line. The Vikings in their own right did not get Robert Saleh fired per se. But we saw what we saw in London on Sunday morning. And it was announced that he's been let go. I saw it from Schefter, and others are now reporting. So he gets hired there in 2021. And the first thing they do is they set him up with Zach Wilson.
Great.
That's the first thing. He's defensive head coach. And the defense, by the way, his first season in 2021 was the worst across the board. Worst scoring, worst in yards. It was a complete disaster. So you got Zach Wilson, and that obviously is not materialized.
Nope.
And then you have the worst defense in the NFL, but you're a defensive head coach. You're going to fix it, and he did. In 2022, they were 4th in scoring, 4th in yards. That's a hell of a turnaround. That's not a bad turnaround, yeah. Right? And actually, I would say the Vikings kind of enjoyed a bit of that as well in the post-Leslie Frazier era. Really, really bad defense. Zimmer comes in. It's mediocre in some respects, but it instantly got better his first season, and then it became elite over the next 3. Defense is good. They go 7-10 2022. They go 7-10 last year with Zach Wilson. I remember Tim Boyle, who needed to be lanced. They started 3. It felt like 3 or 4 different guys. They still figure it out. They got Sauce Gardner in the mix. Garrett Wilson's like a rookie of the year type candidate, but no quarterback. They have, I think, a total of 4 plays from Aaron Rodgers. They made that decision as an organization. I can't imagine that Robert Saleh was the guy that absolutely pounded his fist and won the conversation that brought Aaron Rodgers to New Jersey. There had to have been, whether it's the general manager, and I forget what his name is, ownership, et cetera. They have to all come together on an idea like that. And this is the answer. We got the defense. We believe that Robert put this defense together. But now, offensively, if we just get a quarterback with a pulse, and Aaron Rodgers, even the 3 picks and the sacks and all of that, he's looking every bit of 40 right now. He's still special at times and all of that. So just get that in your head pre-Achilles, what your mindset was of bringing Aaron Rodgers to the mix. And that's stolen from them with that Achilles injury on opening night. You're 5 games in and still trying to figure things out. The defense is still good. And you're firing the head coach at this stage of the year. There's just something, I don't know if it's, There's got to be, there has to be more to it, whether there's a disconnect between him and Rodgers. Was there a blow up? I mean, this is, I can't get my head around it at this point, because the way I'm looking at it is he created a absolute stone cold killer defense. And the issue of quarterback has been the crux of this entire tenure for Saleh.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you give someone some expired chicken and expect them to make gourmet food. And then you fire them because they couldn't make gourmet food out of expired chicken. That seems a little bit on you, doesn't it? I mean, they didn't set him up for success, And like you said, the whole thing with Rodgers, they're just getting started. They're only 5 games into it, so it seems a bit odd. Maybe it's the old classic, he lost the locker room type thing. I'd imagine we're going to start seeing stories like that pretty soon here, so they can put the spin on it no matter how it went down actually in reality. But there has to be something more to it because they're so early on. And I get it's the Jets and they've got high expectations, but this has kind of been par for the course for the Jets. So I'm surprised that they chose to part ways with him so early. But Meat Sauce has been saying it the whole time. I'm sure he won some money from somebody. He's been saying that Robert Saleh was going to get fired since last year. So I don't know who the new hottest seat in the NFL is, but peace to Robert Saleh.
Well, and as we were talking about with Charch last segment, who are they going to put in that spot? Nathaniel Hackett, technically as head coaching experience, it was god awful.
Yeah, the worst.
Maybe that's, but that's all part of a weird week 5. And I know that you'd thrown some highlights and kind of weaved your way through the story of the weekend, Max. Where should we go from an NFL standpoint?
Well, let's not go very far, Nordo. We'll go down to the Windy City, Chicago, where Caleb Williams and the Bears beat the Panthers 36-10. And granted, it's the Panthers. Everyone looks good against the Panthers, but it kind of seems like Caleb and the Bears offense, at least, they're figuring it out.
5 carries, 25 yards for Swift. Here's the snap and a play fake to Swift from the pocket. Caleb throwing open. DJ Moore inside the 15 to the 10. Turns it up to the 5. Walking into the end zone. Touchdown Bears. Caleb Williams, 34 yards to DJ Moore for the score. An extra point away from tying it up with 5:44 to go first quarter.
I didn't watch the whole game. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say 20 of 29, 304 yards and a pair of TDs for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and I actually thought this was going to happen a week ago where they had the Rams, and the Rams are beaten up. And I thought that was going to be his big blow-up game. And in some ways, he just muddled his way through it, threw a couple of picks. But this was always going to happen. Caleb's going to be damn good. He's going to be a problem. And by the time we face the Bears here within the next month and a half or so, he's going to have that many more opportunities and that many more reps under his belt. And I only watched highlights, and the highlights were good. I mean, the 2 touchdowns to DJ Moore, and DJ Moore is so fantastic. He's getting that connection with Cole Kmet that Bears fans really wanted. The only thing I'll say, Rome Odunze hasn't really, from a rookie wide receiver standpoint, I don't know what you're trying to expect. We saw with JJ, with Jefferson, where it really took until the 3rd or 4th game for him to lift off, and then he never came back down.
Right.
He's never coming back down to earth, Justin Jefferson. It's been a little up and down, whether it was Marvin Harrison Jr. in Arizona. He'll hit you for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns here, and then it's like 3 catches for 40 yards there. So up and down. Similar with the Odunze. But the defense is good. It is the Panthers. That's a fair part of this conversation as well. But Caleb's going to be good, and he's starting to get there. And the same way we were talking about, it's been 5 games trying to figure this thing out with Aaron Rodgers. It's been 5 games trying to figure it out with Caleb Williams, and it's starting to click a little bit, which is worrisome for what should be a dogfight of an NFC North.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's the only division with all 4 teams that are above 500 in a very weird NFL season. And speaking of weird, I don't think a lot of people expected the Cincinnati Bengals to be 1-4 5 games into the season, and perhaps one of, if not the best game of the season thus far. It was an absolute shootout between the Ravens and the Bengals, 41-38. The Ravens have now rattled off 3 straight, including, I believe, beating Dallas, Buffalo, and Cincinnati back to back to back. So 3 damn good wins from the Baltimore Ravens. 9 touchdowns between the 2 quarterbacks, and one of them was perhaps one of the greatest plays that I've ever seen with my very own eyes.
Clock is running, 5:46 left to play. The Ravens trail by 10. 2nd and goal, ball just outside the Bengals 6. Justice Hill in the backfield, Lamar in the shotgun. Lamar bobbles the snap, has to pick it up off the turf. He's being chased, corralled, stiff arms a man, Sam Hubbard, and finally slings in the back of the end zone. Touchdown! Isaiah Likely! Oh my! Unbelievable! Lamar Jackson bobbled the snap, picked it up off the turf, stiff-armed Sam Hubbard, a la Derrick Henry, extended the play, threw back across his body, and hit the tight end. In other words, he did everything wrong for the perfect outcome.
Just an absolute. I mean, in a career full of highlights that are unbelievable, that might be number one if you had to do a top 10 of Lamar Jackson highlights. Bobbles, drops the snap, does a classic Heisman, stiff arms a dude, and somehow finds Isaiah Likely on the scramble in the back of the end zone. The Ravens trailed by double digits multiple times throughout the game, but were able to tie it up in the fourth and send it to OT. And then you already know who was going off in OT, Nordo.
First of all,
toss. Henry running to the left side, gets a block. He's at midfield. He's rolling. 40, 30, leg race, 20. The King is on his feet, 10. And he's taken down at the 6-yard line.
That was so
Derrick
good.
Henry has put the Ravens in position to wrap it up.
That's the right Jerry Sandusky on the call, by the way. That's Jerry with a G.
Tough break
on the
for
Ravens
him for
radio
the last
network.
decade or so. You got to change your name at that point.
I'm so embarrassed by this because it's just dumb from like a human to human interpersonal contact. I met him at a combine and just talking, Ravens are good, Lamar in particular, because I'm fascinated by, I love Lamar Jackson. My guy, if PA's sitting here, he's hard on him about his passing, but he's one of the most electrifying people in sports that makes highlights like what you were playing.
Yeah.
And so I love Lamar. Get a couple of questions in, and it's Jerry with a G, right? Is how what a dumb. I couldn't help myself. I'm just so fascinated by it. I knew this, of course, but I wanted to lead into it and see how he would react. And he started laughing about it, and he's like, "Yeah, it hasn't been good for me." He's like, "But thank goodness it is indeed with a G." We always try to make that point,
right?
Now, not that the wrong, that's not funny, but
no, of course not.
But it's just there's probably a good list. How do you're always a Jeff if you're just a random Jeff Dahmer, right?
You gotta go.
There are certain names that you were initially blessed with and somebody tarnished in their own right. Jerry with a G. The Ravens are awesome, dude. You know what's crazy though is Saleh, and I got a couple of texts. Charles from St. Paul, a couple others. The defensive coordinator for the Jets is taken over, not Hackett. Oh. So that tells you everything you need to know about their thoughts on Mr. Hackett. The Bengals have scored 33, 34, and now 38 points, and they're 1-2 in those games. And they started off, and they always start slow. It's an ugly one against the Pats, and then a nail-biter in Kansas City at Arrowhead. They get clipped by a point. But the offense, man, is working. I mean, Burrow, you mentioned, 9 touchdowns in the game? Is that what it was?
Yeah, 5 for Burrow, 4 for Lamar.
Correct, yeah. So he threw for nearly 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. And it felt like, and constantly, until it got weird late, it was always everything the Ravens could do. Burrow, I'm pretty sure Jamar Chase had 2 touchdowns of over 40 or 50 yards. He had one for 70. I know that.
I think he has the most in the NFL since he got into the league.
Okay, perfect. But he was an absolute superstar on Sunday. And every time the Ravens got close, Burrow is like, nah, we got this. And they just march right down and score. This defense is a freaking travesty right now. That's, for a team that's 1-4, didn't think that would happen. And the division is most certainly out of reach at this stage for the Bengals. But my goodness, how bad is that freaking defense? They got to look. I don't know who the defensive coordinator is. I'm not trying to root for people to get fired, but it's not good there.
Yeah, it is not good there whatsoever, and it's looking real dicey about them making the playoffs, especially in an AFC North that is surprisingly a little bit more competitive than I think most people thought, but in a completely different way because the Steelers are up there, Browns are doing terrible, but Cincinnati doing terrible as well. It's also not looking good for Buffalo over the last couple of weeks. I mentioned they took a huge L to the Ravens, just got their asses absolutely kicked last week, and for most of this game this past week, they were getting their asses whooped again, this time by Houston. I believe Houston had a 20-3 lead at one point. Buffalo led a little bit of a charge there, but then some baffling decision making by Sean McDermott there at the end, where they threw 3 straight times out of their own end zone, stopped the clock, didn't give their punter any room to punt. He boots it. The Texans get it around the 40-yard line. They make one completion, and then this happened.
Here's the snap by Weeks. The spot. Here's the kick by Fairbairn. Has the distance, and it's good! Fairbairn wins it at the buzzer! The Texans beat the Bills! 59 yards for the dub on H-Town Day.
I wonder if Fairbairn's missed. That was Mark Vandermeer, longtime Houston Texans Vox. I wonder if Fairbairn's missed since he missed that long field goal against the Vikings. He's good. He was good from 59. I'm glad you led it perfectly. The 3 passes from the Bills starting at their own 3. The Texans entered that. You played that kick. They had all 3 of their timeouts.
Yeah.
First down run, timeout. You can play this game out, right? So they throw a short one over the middle to I just can't say the name. Agumbawale. There we go. Now it's ratting. Agumbawale. Right. I'll say it in the shower every morning for the next week. I'm going to have it. They don't get to throw that over the middle, spike it, and kick the field goal. I mean, it's egregiously dumb. And you're right. They got run out of, was that, I think it was in Buffalo, or maybe it was at M&T. Yeah, they were at the Ravens.
Houston, yep.
They got run out of M&T the week before against the Ravens, and Jerry with the with the G. And then what they did there, how did Josh Allen get to come back into the game after clearly being knocked unconscious? I don't know how that works. Apparently he was fine. But no, they're still, I mean, with the Jets in the trouble and the turmoil that they're in, the Patriots are absolutely hideous, and the Dolphins can beat the Patriots, but probably nobody else without Tua. The Bills are still going to run away with that division, but this is kind of, if you're a Bills fan, much like if you're a Vikings fan, even when things are good, they're not good enough. This is a team that comes out of the gates averaging like 35 points a game, and then they drop a 10 on you against the Ravens. This is a team that in some respects is flying high, but in very front-running manner. And then when they get smacked, they stay down. And that's part of the problem that you've seen. And now next up, I think it's Monday against the Jets. So we get to see Mr. Ulbrich in his head coaching debut against the Bills. You want to do one more and pause?
Yeah, let's do one more. Buffalo, just one more note on them. They got some Miami to them where they do really, really well against bad teams and then look subpar against winning teams. Josh Allen was 9 for 30.
9 for 30?
9 for 30, by the way. Their whole offense is basically just putting their hands together and saying, Josh Allen, please save us.
Well, I mean, then what you'd say is Sam Darnold is not, he's cooling, but he's not turning back into Sam Darnold. You could say he's turning into Josh Allen after a tough performance in London. And we don't want that, apparently.
We don't want that. And Josh Allen was a preseason kind of MVP favorite, an MVP pick amongst many NFL talking heads on TV. But a guy that is an MVP frontrunner probably right now is Jaden Daniels. The Washington Commanders improved to 4-1. They just absolutely stomped the Cleveland Browns 34-13. And Jaden Daniels just cannot be stopped.
2nd and 7 at the 41-yard line. 2 wide receivers to the right and 3 to the left. McCaffrey and Ertz next to each other inside the numbers. McCaffrey chip blocks. Jade loads one up towards the outing run. He's got him! Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! Daniels to Brown on a bomb!
I think that's the team. If they're still the team 980, ESPN maybe in Washington D.C. I apologize if I'm wrong. But they have like a 10-person booth in Washington right now. They're 4-1. See, again, that's how weird this season is.
Right.
Where Sam Darnold's top 5 in MVP conversation and the Commanders. Now, is there any? Do you think, Max? Is there any way that like we could go back in time, and we'll talk to Lavelle about it. He still loves Caleb, and he should. And maybe Jaden Daniels thus far, if we're just judging through 5 games, clearly the best of the rookie crop at this stage. And he's learning on the fly very quickly. But how much does this Cliff Kingsbury thing play into this at all? Where Cliff Kingsbury, tough stretch as a head coach down in Arizona, but he has made a meal out of offense in his career. I mean, he's made a pretty damn good living for himself. And kind of, even as he went to the Cardinals to become a head coach, they allowed him to kind of pick his guy and kind of handpick all of his bits to make it his own. This guy knows offense, and this guy works with athletic quarterbacks. And that, it's so easy to go like kind. Kyler Murray, not necessarily the runner. I don't think instinctually that a Jaden Daniels is, although Kyler Murray, a ton of rushing touchdowns in his career, and had like a 50-yarder this weekend. So I guess maybe it's the wrong week to talk about how Kyler is more, he's more evade and throw versus evade and run. But Kingsbury is, I think he deserves a ton of credit for this. So in some respects, and, the defense isn't awful, that helps. And if they have to win shootouts, they got the guy to do it. But it's, in some ways, over the summer post-draft, it's like it never really clicked in my head. Maybe Kingsbury can work some magic with this kid, but clearly Jaden on his own and maybe the OC have had a lot to do with their success.
Well, and that just goes to show how important coaching is, because on paper, look at how much better the Bears' offense is than the Commanders' offense. Outside of McGlory, I can't name two other people on the Commanders' offense. In the last 3 weeks, they scored 38, 42, and 34 compared to the coach. The Bears have one of the best offenses on paper, and it's taken Caleb Williams to play the Panthers to finally get clicking. And a lot of people mentioned that when he got drafted to Chicago, who obviously historically has not had a very good run of quarterbacks. In particular, just this specific coaching staff has just not been able to unlock offenses over the last several years. So I just think it just goes to show how important coaching is, because Cliff Kingsbury has made all the difference in Jaden Daniels' success early on in the season.
Wow, Jamison Crowder is still in the league. He's only 30.
Really?
Yeah. De'Ami Brown. Just before we move on, Agumbawale. Okay, perfect. Olamide Zacchaeus.
Oh,
I may have butchered that name too. I'm usually good with names, but some of these are escaping me. But yeah, it's Eckler, and Eckler only 11 catches through 4 games, so he hasn't been a massive factor, and sometimes they get old quick. But Robinson, I thought he was kind of questionable to even play. He's already got 5 on the ground and a receiving TD. But yeah, wow, this is nutty. Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah.
The wrong McCaffrey in most cases, although right now he's the healthy McCaffrey.
These names are not jumping off the page.
Do you think Luke's able to sit down with Christian and obviously Christian more successful and more, he's the better player, and Luke's can't make the club in the tub, Christian.
Right.
What weird ailment are you going to come up with next? He's in Germany trying to figure it. This Achilles is spreading like a virus. It was in one leg, now it's in both.
Yeah.
My goodness. Luke
Just sending him pictures of stats like, I got you beat this year.
But Noah Brown, yeah, it's crazy what the Commanders are doing. Fun trip, through the NFL weekend that was Week 5. Well, let's continue this actually around the break. Do you have any more?
Oh yeah, I got Giants, Seahawks, Cardinals, Niners, Packers, Rams, Cowboys, Steelers, all types of stuff.
No, that's sweet. Well, we'll continue whipping through this, because at 10 we're going to jump back into the Vikings with Lavelle. We'll hit the Lynx tonight, Game 5 at Target Center. Winner advances to the WNBA Finals. Let's go Lynx. And then some Gophers football in the final hour with Ryan Burns. So we got a bunch of Vikings, Gophers, and Lynx stuff headed our way, but we'll continue with the NFL next. It's Nordo in for PA 9 to noon.
Join former Twins players LaTroy Hawkins and Glenn Perkins, as well as other local celebrities, for Paddle for a Purpose Pickleball Social on October 13th at Minneapolis Cider Company to help raise funds for Hammer and NER, a local nonprofit that provides housing and services to people with developmental disabilities. Enjoy games, food, and live music, plus more. Get the full details at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Thank you, Max. Lavelle Neal III is going to be in studio, just running a little late.
What?
Yeah,
Lavelle?
It's shocking. He's stuck in the elevator right now, actually.
That's so unlike him.
Maintenance is on their way, and they're going to take care of him here at Planet Utica. But last segment, we kind of kicked things around with Week 5 of the NFL and just how funky, as our squad is 5-0 headed into the bye, how things have traversed thus far through the NFL season, but in particular, a wonky Week 5. Where are we headed to next, Max?
We are headed to the Steel City, Pittsburgh, where the Steelers and the Cowboys had a pretty low-scoring game. Cowboys ended up eking it out thanks to a late Dak Prescott TD.
2 receivers right, 2 left. Now Lamb is outside on the left, Turpin in the slot. Prescott in the shotgun, Dowdle to his right. Prescott gets the snap, back to pass. Prescott looking, throws for the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown Cowboys. Jalen Tolbert in the left corner of the end zone makes the catch. And the Cowboys have taken the lead with 20 seconds to go.
So after an impressive 3-0 start, Pittsburgh has dropped their last 2, and the Cowboys overcome some struggles from Dak, who had 2 TDs and 2 interceptions, and a rare kind of just dud of a CeeDee Lamb game. I mean, 5 receptions, 62 yards, but that's not top receiver in the NFL kind of game. But the Cowboys found a way to overcome and beat the Steelers, who now find themselves at 3-2, while the Cowboys improved to 3-2 in that tough NFC East division, Nordo.
So we talked about it 2 different times, Max, how exciting it was that by lunchtime on Sunday, the Vikings had gotten the win and we still had a full day of football. Well, then suddenly there's this massive delay and we got to wait until I think it was almost like 10 o'clock before this game finally started.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it sucked. So I didn't watch the entire game. But so we do this 6-pack of picks bit on a weekly basis. And the host is already so bored with it, he doesn't want to do it anymore because we're so bad at it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is when there's a combination of things happening. You're trying to handicap games on the weekend, on a Thursday. There's a lot of things that can change. But really at a base level, it's all about the amount of time that you put into contriving an opinion on what's going to happen in a game. So we do the 6-pack of bits, and I try to include like, ooh, this one's spicy. This is a habanero sculpin. This one's going to be ugly. It's your dad's can of hams in the back of the fridge, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, for instance, into this weekend, on Thursday, I was super passionate about the Bills bouncing back from that loss to the Ravens. And if Mixon wasn't going to play, then the Bills, I think they were a 1-point favorite into the game, that they're going to start fast and they're going to mow them down. Well, how well did that go? I think the Texans, as you mentioned, were up 20-3. Yeah. And their own incompetence inside their own 5 at the end allowed the Texans to come out with the win. So that's 0 for 1. Okay. Seeing it very clearly, Nords. Then I'm just thinking, you know what? Rams are so beaten down right now, 1-3. Nobody's healthy. Their season is effectively over. And as good as the LaFleur bit was, they're high off of one half of football with a Vikings team in cruise control at that stage. I'm going to take the Rams plus a field goal. They're going to win that game. The Rams were never going to win that game.
No.
And and Jordan Love, for all of his faults, I got Cindy in studio tomorrow. We'll do some Porter battle. We're going to chat some Howell. We're going to talk about Jordan Love. He is wildly inaccurate at times. He is addicted to throwing off his back foot, and he ain't Aaron. He's not 40-year-old Aaron, to be honest with you, but he's definitely not prime Aaron Rodgers.
Certainly not.
They were never going to lose that game. And that first pass, it was gorgeous. And the defensive back for the Rams, forget who it is, he even swipes his hand over Jaden Reed's head as Jordan Love just dropped this absolute beautiful 50-yard teardrop dime right on the Rams' faces. Stupid opinion there. Let's get into the primetime game. I was so confident that Justin Fields had... I don't know if Justin's a Star Tribune subscriber, so I don't believe that he actually read Mark Craig's extended piece in his extended conversation with Mike Zimmer. But this is a 3-1 team into the game. This is a defense that has handled its own, looks pretty damn good, although there's a lot of people down on Tomlin right now. I saw somebody kind of put it, they're like, he will cap the floor. Like you're never going to be awful, but you're never going to be great. A lot of people down on Tomlin right now. So we'll see how that unfolds. But I thought the Steelers were this was Justin Fields. He was going to do nasty things to Zimmer's defense. And I hate to say it because I kind of liked the guy when he was here. Just the relationship I had with Zim at times, as things kind of eroded over the last couple of years, we've gone through that 100 times. But I have to be honest, I was kind of hoping that they'd get absolutely smacked. I don't like McCarthy. I don't like the Cowboys in general. Dak, for me, don't get it. And I was excited to watch the Steelers just haymaker those guys all night long, and it didn't happen. Those were as I'm talking about it now, I was so excited to share that with the listening audience. That's brutal. Those opinions were terrible.
Literally every single one of them.
Every single opinion that I had into the NFL weekend was wrong. So I'm open to continuing to do it. I have fun with it, and
right.
when I'm right, I'm not going to peacock about it. When I'm wrong, I'm going to laugh about it because it's so inconsequential, really, in the grand scheme. I don't think the host wants to do it anymore. So we'll see. He's out till Thursday. It's a hockey show, so there probably won't be any six-pack of picks taking place on Thursday as it is. But we're gonna have to just like any team into the bye week, we're gonna have to reevaluate some things 9 to noon, because for entertainment purposes only, I need to print that on my forehead. You need to understand that when I start flying out with some opinions like that, run the other way.
Bet the opposite of whatever Nordo was saying, and you might become a rich man.
All right, so there's that. Where are we headed to next?
Did you see this one happening, Nordo? How about the Arizona Cardinals eking out a 24-23 win against a hobbled San Francisco 49ers team? Sunday was a day of a lot of almost comebacks. The Bills almost came back against the Texans. The Rams almost came back against the Packers. And San Francisco, they had a chance late, but Cardinals shut all of that down.
2 receivers left, 1 right with 1:15. First down, snap to Purdy. Straight drop, back in trouble, hit, and the ball flutters far side, and Kaiser White with a diving interception to win the game at midfield. Purdy got hit, the ball fluttered, and Kaiser White caught up to it, pulled it in, and the Cardinals are going to get one in San Fran.
Yeah, they were up 23-10 with the Niners. Is that accurate?
I believe that is accurate.
Man,
who would have thought this Cardinals team would be? They're kind of scrappy this year, Nordo. They've been in some dogfights. They've lost a couple of close ones. They've been in some dogfights with some good teams. This Cardinals team it might be coming around here in a little bit. Kyler Murray, his demise may have been prematurely stated.
So you've heard the way that we talk periodically about Will Reichard.
Yeah,
the kid never misses, but if you see the kid in person, you're wondering where his legal guardian is.
Right. Yeah.
Just a baby face. It's Will Reichard. When I saw Kyler Murray run, it was joint practices at TCO, and he was still recovering from the ACL. Weren't going to see him in the preseason game or anything like that. It was very similar. He's tiny,
really small,
and I don't know if it's pettiness or just it's your first impressions can mean so much, but whether it was the arrogance of how he came into the league, then you hear about the contract re-up, and there's like a video game clause in there, just like some weird bits.
Right.
And we were talking about Cliff Kingsbury, and things were going to go south there eventually. That it's just there was something about Kyler that I didn't like, but the talent is undeniable. And they are scrappy. The defense isn't very good. Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive backs coach here in the 2017 season, he's the head coach there now in Arizona. There's a video, and I can't remember who did it, but somebody was recording a video of us in the radio booth from the iHeart suite that's right next to us. So it's looking towards the coaches and the assistant coach's booth. And there's a guy in that room pounding on the glass, looking at us, pointing at us, clapping. It was just pure mayhem. That's Jonathan Gannon. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
He's super. And I think he's going to get a hang on this. You can run for 10 miles on his defense right now. I mean, it's probably a personnel issue, but they're, and by the way, the Cardinals are 2-3. So They tried to win and ultimately lost a valiant shootout against the Bills week 1. And they put it on the Rams. We know that, but couldn't figure out how to get over the hump, made some huge mistakes in the Lions game, and they got run out of their own building by the aforementioned Jaden Daniels. So it's not a great team, but clearly a team that gets up for their division games, for their ability. And I know that it was at home for the Rams, but I mean, James Conner, and they just absolutely rolled McVay's team. And now for them to come back on the road in the Bay and beat the Niners, that's impressive. Do you think that changes? Like, how do you look at when we talk about beating the Niners? So they had all the right guys in that game week 2. But now you've seen kind of this trip up. You've seen that there are some issues. This is a team that had contract issues with not only, and it's completely blank in my name,
Brandon Ayuk.
Well, that not only Ayuk, Trent Williams. I wanted to say Terrence Williams. It's like an actor, I think.
I think it is. Yeah.
He's not on the roster. But Trent Williams, they had these contractual issues and trying to work everything into the 11th hour. And they do get it done, but there was kind of some turmoil. And now they've had issues. And Purdy in this offense still pretty damn good. But I think that they're in absolute trouble in terms of trying to find their way. And you know, if you're Shanahan and you're any of those Niners players, and now Christian McCaffrey, of course, with both legs, they're still going to be around. I mean, this Seattle Seahawks thing, they just took that loss. I think that's 2 in a row after starting perfect. At one point, is McDaniel, the coach, or McDonald, excuse me, is he the new potential coach of the year? Look what he's done with the Seahawks. Fast start. Well, they got run out of the building by the Kitties in prime time, and they just lost to the Giants.
Yikes.
With their own field goal or the kick blocking bit that we got bit by. Frank Clark jumped over the center in a primetime game at Seattle in 2018, 2019? I forget which one it was. And it was completely a penalty. This one, because they jumped the gap, apparently it's not a penalty. But that insult to injury play to end that game for the Giants, that's got to hurt if you're the Seahawks. We'll see them later this year. We'll see. But the Niners are a funky team, but they're probably still going to be around. Maybe this McCaffrey thing doesn't get figured out. They can still run the ball with Jordan Mason. But I would say that this would be the wake-up moment. For people that were thinking about the Vikings starting fast and all of that, they haven't faced any adversity. They barely trailed all season. When's that wake-up moment going to happen? Was that the Jets game? Hard to say. But I think this was the wake-up moment for the Niners. They're in trouble right now, but with the way that division shakes out, they'll have a chance. They'll have a chip in a chair for sure.
Yeah, it's not the best division in the world. And Saucy actually said it this morning, and I agree with them. It's the Niners defense that's been letting them down. The defense is fully healthy. And it sounds crazy because you look at the stats, they're still up there. They're still near the top 10 and yards allowed and points allowed and all that stuff, but they're just not coming up with the big clutch plays in a similar vein that the Vikings defense does, even where it's bending and not breaking. This defense has been letting them down, and it just doesn't have the offensive firepower to match that they are typically accustomed to in San Francisco. So they gotta wake up pretty fast here, because that's a pretty bad start. And when you have the same record as the Arizona Cardinals 5 games in, I don't think a whole lot of 49ers fans had that on their radar early on in the season.
Yeah, no kidding. And Brandon from New Mexico, Nordo is the Rex Ryan of KFAN. Just terrible football takes. Sorry, Nordo. Yeah, you might be onto something. I don't know what the Rex Ryan connection is. There's only one connection I make with Rex these days. It's Tootsies.
Right. I was going to say, I'll keep my shoes on.
Yeah, no kidding. If I'm looking for a pedicure, I'll talk to Rex. But other than that, I don't know about the wagering side of things. What's next? Let's do one more and then we'll pause. And I think Lavelle, they're taking the jaws of life to open the elevator doors right now.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier, Nordo. Jordan Love, he's mercurial, to borrow a phrase from your guy, PA. He's got his ups and his downs this season. He threw his first ever pick 6 of his career during the second quarter of the Rams Packers game, which the Packers ended up barely winning 24-19. And then he goes on to complete 9 straight passes, including one of these touchdowns.
2nd and 6. Packers trying to capitalize off the 13th takeaway of the year by their defense. And off play action. Looking downfield, rifling left side. Tucker Kraft wide open, left sideline, 40, 30, 25, 20, all the way to the end zone for the touchdown. Tucker Kraft tight roughing the left sideline to the end zone, and the Packers into the lead.
Rams had a chance to win it late, but it was actually the Packers defense that ended up coming up big.
Here it is, ball game, 4th down and almost 5. Football to the 38-yard line of Green Bay. Stafford to the shotgun, 3 receivers left. Now he empties the shotgun. Slot right, slot left, snap. Stafford looking, waiting, throws. It's broken up, incomplete. Yes, broken up on the play on a slant pattern, and it is Carrington Valentine who breaks it up. There is your dagger, finally.
I think that's the first dagger I've gotten to hear in the 2024 season. I love me some Larrivee. How about this? In Brazil, weird spot, neutral location, 17 of 34, 50% completion percentage against the Eagles. 59%, you like that number. He got better in his return. That would be against the Vikings. We didn't like it as Vikings fans. Ends up with 4 TDs, but those 3 picks cost him. And then 15 of 26, 57% completion. There's just something that's not working with that group right now. But going back to kind of the frame up when we were talking a segment ago, this Packers defense is good. The run game is good. LaFleur is an elite coach. And this is the toughest division in the NFL right now. So, we don't like how that second half went. Loved the start. Not having Jair Alexander appears to be an issue. And you hear, Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon, oh my. They need something back there to figure things out. But we'll talk more about it with Cindy tomorrow in the border battle and get kind of his insight on things. Nice win for them down there. As I mentioned, I just didn't think it was going to happen. That was just a stupid opinion. So in the realm, if we were talking fantasy football, do the opposite when it comes to wagering. Hear me get really excited about an idea and then run the other way. There's no doubt about that. So thank you, Max, for taking us on a little voyage. And when we return, we are expected to see, we're hoping to see, Lavelli Neal III, a bit dehydrated. See, this is what happened. He came here early today and got stuck in the elevator. I mean, what awful luck that is. But weekly guest, of course. And we love him to death. Lavelle is expected to be with a Star Tribune columnist, and we'll continue this football, women's hoops, playoff baseball. His book is out. It's a potpourri of conversation with Lavelle next. Let's just do that cash thing now, Max.
Yeah, let's do it now. Nordo, the fan, and 2 men in a truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword bank at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword bank. Enter it now at KFAN.com.